This experience happened when I was in college and I was attending a class reunion. We decided to choose the farm of a classmate's family as the location of the party. The weather was very nice that day. At this farm, we decided to play a baseball game to see who could hit the ball farther. When the game started, the other students and I took turns to hit the ball on the field. Everyone swung the bat hard, hoping to hit the baseball farther. Unfortunately, I didn't do very well and I wasn't able to hit the ball very far. I lost the game. According to the pre-agreed rules, I needed to retrieve all the baseballs that were far away. The farm was surrounded by very high fences and the fences were covered with barbed wire. When I jumped from the top of the fence, I cut my palm by the sharp barbed wire. In an instant, a large amount of blood began to gush rapidly out of the wound. I couldn't go back the way I came because my palm couldn't take any more pressure. The people at the party didn't notice my condition because they were far away from me. I felt a great deal of panic. I knew I needed to get back to the party as soon as possible. When I got back to the party, I found a water source and rinsed the wound with water. When I looked at the wound, it looked a little deep and kept bleeding. I tied my shirt tightly around the wounded area, hoping to stop the bleeding as soon as possible. I have a high pain tolerance, as I have often been injured in previous sports, so I tried to stay calm. My clothes were soon soaked with bright red blood. The wound still did not stop bleeding. I told my classmates not to worry, that I would be fine, that I was strong. After a while, I realized that the situation had become urgent and that I needed to seek more professional medical help. Now I urgently needed stitches, but the nearest hospital was an hour's drive away. I kept reassuring myself that I would be fine soon and not to panic. I looked at my watch and more than an hour had passed since I was injured. Suddenly, I had a wonderful feeling in my body that started in my feet and quickly spread throughout my body. The feeling was indescribable and made me feel very strange. I told my best friend that something strange was happening, but that no matter what happened, I would be fine. Even though I had no idea what was about to happen, I tried to stay positive. Then, I felt myself getting lighter and lighter, as if I was free from my body's restraints. This feeling put me in a supernatural state. I felt myself gradually leaving my body. Finally, I entered a state that transcended the material world. I can't describe that feeling, it was beyond what humans can understand. I felt a sense of peace, and any pain or worry disappeared. Although I had left my body, I still maintained my sense of self. I had no idea what would happen next. While I was floating in the air, there were many people around my body. I didn't want to worry them, so I started shouting, "Hey, I'm right here, I'm fine." They couldn't seem to hear me. I approached one of my friends and tried to tap him on the shoulder, but he didn't respond. This made me feel more and more confused. Suddenly, I felt myself start to drift upward uncontrollably. This feeling made me feel very nervous because no matter how hard I tried, I could not change the situation. As I continued to rise, the sky turned from blue to black. There was not a single ray of light in this place, and darkness enveloped everything around. Here, time seemed to have come to a standstill. I felt as if I was trapped in a maze. In the darkness, I could feel the presence of evil, as if countless pairs of eyes were watching me. Evil spirits hovered in the air, with twisted forms and hideous faces, emitting low hissing sounds. These evil spirits gave off an evil aura that I could not bear. They kept changing their forms, sometimes transforming into monsters, and sometimes into shadowy shadows. The atmosphere here made me feel depressed and desperate. They surrounded me and tried to drag me into the abyss. I still harbored a ray of hope. I began to pray that I would continue to float upward, away from these demons. Fortunately, my prayers seemed to be answered. I continued to float upward, away from the spooky evil spirits. I continued to pray that I would find the light. A bright light appeared in the distance from me. As I entered this light, a pure energy surrounded me. The light shone on my body, giving me warmth and strength and making me feel good about life. A man in a white robe appeared in front of me. The man's gaze was warm and loving, as if he knew everything about me. "Welcome to this place." His voice was low and gentle, yet at the same time full of power. I felt accepted and understood, as if I had returned to a home where I truly belonged. "You successfully fought off those evil spirits," he continued, "and your faith and prayers have brought you here. Now, you will get the answers you want here. This man seems to be my mentor. Please follow me," he said, and turned to walk deeper into the light. Curious, I followed. We passed through a gate and then entered a completely different realm. A magnificent array of buildings unfolded before my eyes. The man led me into one of the buildings, which looked like a huge library. The shelves were lined with countless books and scrolls. The man told me that I would find the true meaning about life here. I began to explore this mysterious and wisdom-filled place. There, I learned about the importance of love and forgiveness. I learned about the universe. Learned about its origin and how it works, and our role and mission in it. Man served as my mentor and patiently answered all my questions. He helped me to broaden the boundaries of my thinking. In this mysterious library, time seemed to have no concept of existence. I gradually understood that life is a journey. Each of us is a part of the universe, carrying a unique mission and purpose. I found the answers I had been searching for in this mysterious library. Next, the man took me to a peaceful garden. The flowers emitted an enchanting fragrance. The man pointed to a distant valley and said that was our next destination. We passed through a dense forest. As we climbed, the man told me that every challenge is a gift of life. They shape our courage and resilience. It is only in the face of difficulty that we can truly surpass ourselves. Eventually, we made it to the top of the mountain. The man pointed to the sunset in the distance and said that the moment the sun sets, we should be grateful for every day of sunshine. In that moment, I felt the preciousness of life and understood the importance of cherishing and gratitude. Standing at the top of the mountain, I felt inner peace and determination. I was determined to incorporate what I had learned into every detail of my life and to impact others with kindness and wisdom. The man watched me as he encouraged me to believe in my own strength and to persevere in the pursuit of my inner truth and goodness. I looked at the man gratefully. I understood that this moment was our moment to say goodbye and that I had to return to the real world to continue my journey. The man embraced me gently. I looked at the beauty of the place and took a deep breath. I thanked the man and will always miss this precious experience. I turned around and walked towards the bottom of the mountain. Every step was so real. I felt the pain again. I knew that I was back in the real world. When I opened my eyes, my classmates were all around me. I stood up to their great surprise. I said excitedly, "You won't believe this, but I just went to another place." However, I was disappointed by their reaction. They exchanged glances with each other with confused expressions, as if they could not understand what I was saying. One of them whispered to me, "Calm down first, you need to go to the hospital now." I tried to explain again, telling them about the adventure I had just taken, but they didn't seem to be listening. They started arguing about who should drive me to the hospital. This made me feel very frustrated. I wished I hadn't returned to Earth, but remained in that place. Despite my desire to share with them, their attention was focused on my injuries. They wanted me to calm down and get proper treatment and care. My classmates were ready to drive me to the hospital. I lay in the back seat and thought back to what I had just experienced. I began to wonder if what I had just experienced was just a hallucination. The time in the car seemed to become very long. Suddenly, I felt a wave of dizziness and I lost consciousness again. This time, I left my body faster than before, as if I had traveled back in time and space in an instant, back to the top of the mountain before. The man's voice reappeared. He told me that this was not a game, and that I had to return to Earth to help the others. He promised to send me back immediately. I felt a strong force surround me and I was back in my body again. This time the return seemed to be more rapid. I was lying in a hospital bed, surrounded by unfamiliar sounds and sights. I understood that I was back on Earth, back in my own life. The doctor took an antiseptic tool and carefully cleaned my wound. I closed my eyes tightly. The whole process was not too long. The doctor removed the gloves, smiled and said to me, "The wound has been treated, now you need to rest, let the body recover as soon as possible." I nodded my head and thanked the doctor. Before he left the room, I shared with him what I had just experienced. I described the mysterious place. After the doctor listened to my description, he smiled a little, seemingly with a hint of doubt. Then, he left the room. Although the doctor did not respond to me directly, I swear that the experience was real. Not only did that experience change my perspective on life, it also made me realize that everyone has a journey and a calling of their own. I know that that experience was real and meaningful to me. I will always keep this precious experience. I re-examined my relationship with my parents. When I went to college, my relationship with my parents began to become strained. I now realize that they have been quietly giving of themselves to me. Therefore, I decided to treat them with an attitude of gratitude. I began to take the initiative to communicate with my parents and listen to their ideas and opinions. I learned to respect their point of view more. This change brought more harmony to us. We understood each other better and respected each other's space and needs. This experience gave me a new understanding and perception of family, and it became a valuable asset in my life. The story takes place in 1986, when I was just 7 years old. I was very naughty when I was small and often did some dangerous things. No matter how many times my mother criticized me, I could not control my curiosity. It was a summer noon and my mother was cleaning the house. My sister went to a school activity, and I felt very bored by myself. During the last week, my father bought a second-hand closet because he thought it was cheap. The closet was made of very good wood, so it was very heavy. Because the closet door had some problems that prevented it from working properly, it was temporarily placed in the utility room of our house. In order to let the smell in the closet dissipate quickly, the door has been supported by a wooden board. At that time, I saw that the door of the utility room was open, which aroused my curiosity. Curious, I walked into the closet. Suddenly, the plank on the door fell off and the closet door was locked. To make matters worse, the closet fell straight down. It was so dark all around that I could barely see my fingers. The space inside the closet was quite small, and the lack of air circulation made me feel suffocated. My breathing became difficult and the scene made me feel extremely scared and desperate. I pushed and shoved desperately against the closet and my fingers were cut. The weight of the closet prevented me from moving it, and every effort went nowhere. The air became thinner and thinner, and my breathing became rapid and difficult, as if an invisible force was gripping my throat. My consciousness began to blur and my thinking became confused. I didn't know how much longer I could hold on. I put my head in my hands, tears mixing with the blood. Time became a blur and I felt like I was moving away from the real world. It was as if I could hear voices in the distance, the sound of my parents calling out anxiously. But this voice became more and more distant. Finally, my consciousness was completely swallowed by darkness. I could no longer distinguish reality from the dream world. When I regained consciousness again, I found myself leaving my own body. I was floating in the sky above the house. From this height, I looked down on the entire backyard and house, and could clearly see my mother's figure. My father had also returned home, and I could hear their conversation. "Where is the son?" the father asked the mother. "Playing outside," mother replied. Father looked out the window. "I wished he could see me," I shouted, but my voice seemed to be swallowed by the wind and could not reach them. I watched my father anxiously, hoping he would sense my presence. My body was trapped in the utility room, but they didn't know that. I could only pray silently inside, "Dad, please find me." They did not notice that I was floating over the house. I watched as my father turned away from the window and walked to other rooms. I felt disappointed and helpless. Although I couldn't communicate with them directly, I didn't give up. I decided to take a more direct approach to get their attention. I wrote on the glass of the window with my hand. I wrote my name and a message asking for help, hoping they would see it. They still didn't notice my presence. Just then, I felt a strong force pulling me backwards. I was traveling between universes at a very fast speed. This rapid movement made me feel extremely uncomfortable, and I could only close my eyes tightly. Time became blurred and I couldn't tell exactly how much space I had traveled. Eventually, I felt the speed begin to slow down gradually. When I opened my eyes, I found myself in a peaceful and beautiful valley. Surrounded by tall trees, the valley was flowing with clear streams. I breathed in the pure air, and it all made me feel calm. I noticed that the valley was filled with all kinds of beautiful wildflowers. Curious, I walked down to the river, which was glowing with rocks. I picked up a stone and I found that it was translucent and very soft, completely different from the stones on earth. They seemed to have a magical power that made me feel at ease and calm. When I touched the water, my clothes did not get wet, as if the water here was a magical substance. The water here is so buoyant that I lay on the surface and found myself not sinking, but floating gently on the water. This feeling is really very wonderful. I also found myself able to walk on the surface of the water. I felt the current gently embracing me and seemed to be dancing with me. I decided to dive into the water. I found that underwater I was still able to breathe freely, as if the waters provided me with endless power. In this mysterious underwater world, I saw various forms of fish. They shimmered and shined, forming a beautiful picture. Some fish had gorgeous feathers, as if they were peacocks in the water. Some fish have transparent bodies, like underwater elves. There are also some fish with gorgeous scales and streamlined bodies, just like a work of art. I chased them and admired their grace and magic. The river was also filled with all kinds of exotic plants. I was attracted by one of the plants, whose branches were covered with various attractive fruits. I plucked one of the fruits. The fruit had a very smooth appearance and gave off a tantalizing aroma. I couldn't help but put it into my mouth. It tasted very sweet, and the taste of this fruit made me feel happy and satisfied. I saw that a new fruit was growing in the place where I had just picked it. It was growing fast in its original place. I was shocked and curious, so I picked it again. This time the fruit I picked tasted completely different from the previous one. It gave off a fresh aroma. I was delighted to find that a third fruit quickly grew in that spot. It was as if these fruits would never die. As I was about to continue tasting the fruits of other plants, a man in a white robe appeared beside me. His appearance took me by surprise, and I stopped moving my hands. This man had bright eyes. He smiled and reminded me, "Son, the fruit is delicious, but you can't eat too much of it." I was surprised because he seemed to know what I was thinking inside. I stopped to continue picking the fruit. I looked at him and asked curiously, "Why can't I eat too much? These fruits are so delicious, shouldn't we enjoy them to the fullest?" The man smiled and said, "Son, there is a limit to what the world can give us. Greed and excessive desire will often bring bad consequences. While enjoying them, you should also learn to protect and cherish them. Only in moderate taste can you truly experience their beauty." I nodded silently. I sat with him by the river. The man continued, "Son, you didn't come to this place by accident. Every experience has its meaning. When you are lost, you need to learn to look within for guidance, because the answers often lie deep within yourself." I asked, "Can you tell me more about the wisdom of growing up? I want to be able to better understand myself and the world." The man smiled and nodded, then he slowly said, "Life is a journey, full of ups and downs and challenges. Don't be afraid of failures and difficulties, they are opportunities for you to grow. Learn from them and persist in pursuing your dreams. When you are lost, you need to learn to listen to your inner voice. The inner heart is your truest compass, and it will give you the right direction. At the same time, believe in your own abilities, face challenges bravely, and you will find that you have unlimited potential." This man finally said to me, "Son, you have been here long enough, you must go back." I understood that he was right and that my family was anxiously searching for me. I looked at the man with gratitude and respect in my heart. I felt his wisdom and kindness as he gave me guidance when I was lost. I replied firmly, "Thank you for the reminder, I will return to my family." He pointed into the distance and a bright light emanated from his hand. The light was warm and bright. I walked toward that light. The light surrounded me and I felt a warmth. I closed my eyes, and it was as if I was traveling through a tunnel of time and space. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on Earth. Surrounding me were familiar streets and familiar landscapes. I was suspended above the house. I saw that my father had finally found the utility room. He saw the closet fall on the floor and my mother rushed over to help. They struggled to lift the closet up. I could feel their tension and worry. Suddenly, a mysterious force pulled me back into my body. I breathed fresh air again. My father gently laid me down on the couch, worry and anger intertwined on his face. He told me to drink more water. I lay on the couch, my mind filled with confusion. My mother continued to clean the room as if nothing had happened. This frustrated me, and I longed for more attention and love. I wanted them to truly understand the fear and confusion that I was experiencing. I didn't intend to tell them about it at first. I knew I had a habit of lying as a child, and I was worried they would think I was playing another prank. However, when I went to the kitchen to get water, I saw the name I had written on the window glass earlier. I decided to tell my father what I had experienced. I took my father to the window and I tried to tell him what I had experienced. I described how it felt like I was floating in the air and how I had come to a strange valley. However, just as I expected, my father did not believe what I said. He frowned and said angrily, "How many times have I told you, kids don't lie?" He slapped me and I felt hurt and aggrieved. I felt very disappointed and frustrated. I truly hoped that my father would believe me and understand what I was going through. But the reality was harsh and he was suspicious of what I said. I am 65 years old and my fear of death is not as strong as it used to be. Recently, I have spent a lot of time watching videos and reading articles about near-death experiences. These videos and articles have had a great impact on me and have made me re-examine my experiences as a child. What I experienced as a child has always been confusing and frightening to me. The experience left me feeling overwhelmed and confused. But as I got older, I began to understand the importance of these things. As I grew older, I appreciated each moment more. I came to realize that the true meaning of life is not just the pursuit of materialism and merit, but the sharing of warmth and hope with others. This experience made me realize that each person has his or her own journey. Each of us will face death. But that does not mean we should live in fear. Instead, we should experience life in a more profound way, cherish every moment, be grateful for what we have, and give back to the world with love.